Imagine this. The air in Memphis hangs heavy, a suffocating summer night in 145 BC. Torches flicker along the walls of the great temple as priests chant words older than the city itself. At the altar stands a man swollen with power and arrogance, Ptolemy VIII, known to his people as Physcon, the Fat One. But the women beside him are what make the crowd whisper in disbelief. One is Cleopatra II, his sister. The other is Cleopatra III, his niece. This is not a marriage to cement alliances. This is not a union to stabilize a throne. This is a family twisted into a spectacle of desire and ambition. As the priests raise their hands in blessing, guests lower their eyes, ashamed to witness vows that turn blood into chains. The whispers spread like fire. He is marrying both. A sister and a niece, bound in one ceremony, to one man. To Egyptians accustomed to sibling marriages in the royal house, this is not simply unusual, it is excess taken to grotesque extremes. To the Greeks and Romans in attendance, it is proof that the Egyptian crown has become a theater of perversion. This was not politics. This was obsession. And here lies the paradox. A dynasty that once ruled with brilliance, born from the empire of Alexander the Great, had now trapped itself in a prison of its own blood. We think of marriages today as alliances of families, of wealth, of convenience. But what happens when power corrupts even the most sacred human bonds? How could a king turn family itself into a weapon, and in doing so, condemn his own dynasty to ruin? To understand Ptolemy VIII, we must step back into the world he inherited. The Ptolemaic dynasty was founded by Ptolemy Isoter, one of Alexander's generals, who took Egypt after Alexander's death. Unlike the great conqueror who left no heir, Ptolemy understood the danger of dilution. His family would be Greek rulers sitting atop a vast Egyptian population. To maintain that fragile control, the dynasty chose a strategy older than the Nile itself: marriage within the family. Brother to sister, sister to brother, uncle to niece, union after union, generation after generation. The justification was always the same: purity of blood, unity of power. Egyptians themselves accepted sibling marriage among their pharaohs as divine tradition. But for the Greeks who ruled Egypt, it was also political necessity. Into this world was born Ptolemy VIII, son of Ptolemy V and Cleopatra I. From childhood, he grew up watching his brothers and sisters marry one another as though it were as normal as breathing. What began as cold political calculation would, in him, twist into appetite, an obsession with controlling not just the throne, but every bond of kinship around it. Tradition became obsession. Ptolemy learned early that power was fragile. His elder brother Ptolemy VI married their sister Cleopatra II, ruling as king and queen. Ptolemy VIII was left a rival in their shadow. Jealous, ambitious, and resentful, he waited for his chance. And when death struck his brother, leaving Cleopatra II as regent, the younger brother saw his opening, not through war, not through politics, but through the marriage bed. The year was 164 BC. Cleopatra II, a widow, ruled in the name of her son. But Ptolemy VIII came with a proposal that shocked even a dynasty accustomed to incest. He would marry his own sister, stepping into his brother's place not only on the throne, but in the marriage bed. To Cleopatra II, it was a desperate compromise. She knew the court factions, the nobles, the armies, all hungered for division. By marrying her brother, she could keep the throne safe for her son. She could preserve the dynasty. And so the ceremony was held. For a time, the marriage worked as politics demanded. Together, they ruled a prosperous Egypt. Alexandria flourished, the temples gleamed with offerings, trade filled the harbors. But beneath the surface, a different story brewed. Ptolemy VIII was not content with being king. He was not even content with being husband. He was obsessed with domination. The crown weighed heavy on his head, but the darkness in his heart was far heavier. This marriage was not built on love, nor even respect. It was built on control, and control is never satisfied. Ptolemy VIII would soon turn his gaze toward a new target, one that would transform his reign into scandal beyond redemption. Among the children of Cleopatra II was Cleopatra III, the daughter of her first marriage to Ptolemy VI. Born into luxury, raised as a princess, Cleopatra III represented youth, beauty, and dynastic legitimacy. And she was also Ptolemy VIII's niece. To him, that combination was irresistible. Not just the allure of her beauty, but the political advantage. By marrying her, he would unite two generations under his control. The mother, his wife. The daughter, his bride. The court reeled in horror. Cleopatra too, already resentful, raged against the idea. How could her husband also become her son-in-law? How could her daughter become her rival? But Ptolemy VIII was unmoved. Power was his only principle. And so, in 145 BC, he staged the unthinkable, a triple wedding. Before the priests of Memphis, he wed both women, his sister and his niece, at once. The chants of blessing rang hollow, drowned by whispers of scandal. Greeks called it Oriental decadence. Romans mocked it as proof of Egypt's corruption. Even Egyptians accustomed to sibling marriage felt unease. A king, a husband, a son-in-law, one man, too many roles. What Ptolemy VIII had gained in wives, he had lost in loyalty. His marriage bed became a battlefield. His kingdom would soon follow. Cleopatra too, humiliated, refused to accept her daughter as rival queen. In defiance, she raised a rebellion. From Thebes, she declared herself the only legitimate ruler, rallying armies and allies to her side. For the first time in Egypt's long history, the greatest war was not against foreign invaders but against family itself. Brother fought sister. Daughter fought mother. Husband fought wife. Egypt split into factions, and the Nile ran red with civil war. Ptolemy VIII answered rebellion with cruelty. When he captured Memphis in 132 BC, he ordered mass executions of his sister's supporters. Chroniclers wrote of children slain, nobles tortured, families destroyed. Even his own stepson, he had murdered, erasing rivals in blood. This was no longer politics. It was vengeance. The civil war raged for over a decade, tearing Egypt apart. Cities burned. The countryside starved. Rome looked on, writing of Egyptian decadence, and waiting for its chance to intervene. A dynasty meant to project divine order now looked like a house devouring itself. The war ended in uneasy compromise. Cleopatra too returned to Alexandria, forced to share rule with the very daughter who had betrayed her and the brother who had humiliated her. By then, Ptolemy VIII's new line of children by Cleopatra III had begun to grow. But these were no ordinary heirs. They were products of generations of incest, their bloodlines so entangled that court genealogists drew diagrams like tangled webs. These children were at once nephews and sons, grandchildren and heirs. And the effects were visible. Chroniclers noted deformities, instability, madness. The dynasty that had once towered in glory was collapsing under the weight of its own blood. His empire was not conquered by enemies, but devoured from within. To the Romans, this confirmed every suspicion. Egypt, they said, was decadent, incapable of ruling itself. And one day, Rome would come to prove it. When family becomes a weapon, the kingdom itself becomes the victim. The story of Ptolemy VIII is more than scandal, it is warning. His obsession with control through family destroyed the very family he sought to rule. His cruelty during civil war left scars deeper than conquest. His dynasty, once brilliant, became a case study in degeneration. And yet, history has a way of echoing. When rulers confuse power with personal desire, when they place control above duty, the results are always the same: ruin for the people they rule. History is a mirror. The echoes of Physcon's reign remind us that unchecked power devours not only the soul of the ruler, but also the soul of the nation. It would be easy to dismiss Ptolemy VIII as an ancient aberration, a grotesque figure of a distant past. But history is not so kind. His story is not only about incest, it is about power without boundaries. And that danger is as alive today as it was in Alexandria's temples. Think of leaders who surround themselves only with family, who build dynasties not through service but through nepotism, corruption, and control. Think of rulers who turn their nations into personal playgrounds, ignoring the suffering of their people while indulging their own appetites. Think of leaders today who hide their greed behind tradition, who cling to power by twisting laws, silencing rivals, and demanding loyalty above morality. The pattern is clear. Ptolemy VIII's Egypt is not so far from us. Leaders still exist who sacrifice nations for their vanity, who treat power as inheritance rather than responsibility. The names are different. The palaces have changed. But the sickness remains. Power, unrestrained, devours not just the soul of the ruler, but the soul of the nation. The echoes of Ptolemy VIII resound, when rulers abuse family for control, when they mistake kinship for chains, when they corrupt the sacred bonds of trust, then the very foundation of society begins to collapse. Ptolemy VIII's dynasty fell not because of foreign conquest, but because he turned family into a battlefield. Today, the warning remains: when power becomes obsession, when leaders lose sight of their duty, the cost is not just their legacy. The cost is a nation itself.